Hello students, I hope you are all fine and in good health. In this audio presentation, I will be discussing the remaining part from the chapter We Are Not Afraid to Die If We All Can Be Together. So, dear students, let's start. By morning on 3rd January, the pumps had the water level sufficiently under control for us to take 2 hours rest in rotation. So the water level receded, and it had given them ample opportunity to take 2 hours rest, and that rest was also taken on a rotational basis. But we still had a tremendous leak somewhere below the water line. But still, there was a leakage. There was a leakage below the water line, and on checking, I found that nearly all the boat's main reef frames were smashed down to the nil. And obviously, when it was been discovered, it was found that almost all the reef frames of the wave walker was totally been dismantled. In fact, there was nothing holding up a whole section of the starboard hull except a few cardboard partitions. The interior part of the wave walker was totally been destroyed. Only a few cardboard partitions are left behind. We had survived for 15 hours since the wave hit. So, for 15 hours, they had survived. But Wave Walker wouldn't hold together long enough for us to reach Australia. But the main important thing is that initially they thought of reaching Australia, but considering the condition of the wave walker, it was not possible for them to reach Australia. I checked our charts and calculated that there were two small islands a few kilometers to the east. Now, the author went to the chart room or to the control room, and after making some calculations, he found out that there are two small islands a few kilometers, and that is also towards the eastern part. One of them, known as Ile Amsterdam, was a French scientific base. Our only hope was to reach these pinpricks in the vast ocean, and that is the only hope to reach an island, because reaching to Australia or going to Australia is very difficult right at that moment. So it is the only hope, maybe we can say the last hope of the family to reach those small islands. But unless the wind and seas abated so we could host sail, our chances would be slim indeed. The great wave had put our auxiliary engine out of action. So the great wave had put our auxiliary engine totally out of action. And so it needed now the wind and the sea to be favorable. Otherwise, it will be very much difficult for them to move on. On 4th January, after 36 hours of continuous pumping, we reached the last few centimeters of water. Now we had only to keep pace with the water still coming in. We could not set any sail on the mainmast. Now 36 hours of continuous pumping they did. Though the electric pumps, the main electric pump short circuited, the substitute one was been fixed to an out pipe, and water was drained through it. But apart from that, manually, for almost 36 hours, they drained out the excess water by continuous pumping. Pressure on the rigging would simply pull the damaged section of the hull apart. So we hoisted the storm jib and headed for where I thought the two islands were. Mary found some corned beef and cracker biscuits, and we ate our first meal in almost 2 days. And they had eaten their first meal after almost 2 days. And what they had eaten? They had eaten corned beef and cracker biscuits. But our respite was short lived. At 4 p.m., that was on 4th January, black clouds began building up behind us. Within the hour, the wind was back to 40 knots and the seas were getting higher. The weather continued to deteriorate further throughout the entire night, and by dawn on 5th January, our situation was again desperate. So, for a time being, the weather was favorable, but by 4 p.m., late in the afternoon on 4th January, slowly and slowly, the weather started deteriorating, and by 5th January, early in the morning, the situation was very much desperate. That means the weather had deteriorated further. When I went in to comfort the children, John means Jonathan, as you all know by this time, his age was 6 years. He asked the narrator, and here I quote, "Daddy, are we going to die?" In reply to this, the narrator tried to assure him that we could make it. But Daddy, he went on, and here I quote, "We aren't afraid of dying if we can all be together. You and Mummy, Sue and I." So it's a very motivational speech being uttered by the 6-year-old boy. What he told that we aren't afraid of dying if we can all be together. That means if the entire family be together, death can't do them apart or death can't separate them. I could find no words with which to respond, but I felt the children's cabin determined to fight. But I left the children's cabin determined to fight the sea with everything I had. The author was very motivated, and when he left the children's cabin, he was very much determined to fight the sea with everything that he had. To protect the weakened starboard side, I decided to heave to with the undamaged port hull facing the oncoming waves, using an improvised sea anchor of heavy nylon rope and two 22-liter plastic barrels of paraffin. So, nylon rope and paraffin was also used at this time. That evening, Mary and I sat together holding hands because now it is all up to nature, how nature will behave and how the wave walker will react. So I repeat, that evening, Mary and I sat together holding hands as the motion of the ship brought more and more water in through the broken planks. We both felt the end was very near. Yes, we both realized that the end was very near. But surprisingly, the wave walker rode out the storm, and by the morning of 6th January, with the wind easing, I tried to get a reading on the sextant. Okay, that is a navigation tool. So they both realized, Mary and Gordon, they both realized that maybe it's the end for them. But ultimately, it came out to be not exactly what they feared it to be, because the wave walker successfully negotiated the waging and the raging storm, and by the 6th January, the next day, the wind was slowly easing up, and again the narrator went back to the chart room. He walked on wind speeds, changes of course, drift and current in an effort to calculate our position. The best I could determine was that we were somewhere in 150,000 kilometers of ocean looking for a 65 kilometer wide island. Now the position was like that. He went to the chart room, went on doing some calculation, came to the conclusion that they are within the parameters of 150,000 kilometers of ocean, and they are looking for a 65-kilometer wide island. While I was thinking, Sue, moving painfully, joined me. The left side of her head was now very swollen. It had swelled up, and her blackened eyes narrowed to slits. She gave me a card she had made. And not only that, even Sue, despite having so much of pain, despite her head was swollen, despite that, she had drawn some cartoons or caricatures, and apart from that, a very important message was also written on it. Uh, on the front, she had drawn some caricatures of Mary and me with the words, and here I quote: "Here are some funny people. Did they make you laugh?" I laughed a lot as well. Inside was a message: "Oh, how I love you both." You both here refers to Mary and Gordon, the husband and the wife. So, this card is to say thank you and let's hope for the best. So, ultimately, just like the son previously motivated Gordon that if we stay together, then obviously death can't actually take us away from this world. Death can't take anything from us. Death ultimately will be powerless. So this card is to say thank you. And here also we find that Suzanne also gave a card. Okay, Jonathan, he motivated his father. Suzanne, on the other hand, had drawn some cartoon pictures. Okay, and obviously, along with that, she wrote something which is a very motivating thing. And see, it is written, "Oh, how I love you both." Since this card is to say thank you and let's hope for the best, somehow we had to make it. And obviously, it seems that even the daughter was saying also that we had to make it. Somehow we had to make it. Now, dear students, I am moving on to the final climax of this particular chapter. I checked and rechecked my calculations. We had lost our main compass, and I was using a spare which had not been corrected for magnetic variation. I made an allowance for this and another estimate of the influence of the westerly currents which flow through this part of the Indian Ocean. About 2 p.m., I went on deck and asked Larry to steer a course of 185 degrees. And obviously, by 2 p.m. in the afternoon, he went on top of the deck. He means the narrator, and told Larry that it is better if you steer a course of 185 degrees. If we were lucky, I told him with a conviction, with a faith that I did not feel he could expect to see the island at about 5 p.m. So obviously an island could be visible. An island could be visible by 5 p.m. Then with a heavy heart, I went below, and the narrator was very tired, climbed on my bunk, and amazingly dozed off because he was very tired. When I woke, it was 6 p.m. and growing dark. It was growing dark also. I knew we must have missed the island because he slept for 1 hour extra. And he thought when he woke up at around 6 p.m. in the evening, he thought that maybe they had missed the island. And with the sail we had left, we couldn't hope to beat back into the westerly winds. Now, obviously, the narrator felt like that it is not possible right now to relocate that island. But to his surprise, he found that his son and daughter are waiting for him near the door with smiling faces. That makes it very clear that ultimately the island was discovered. At that moment, a tousled head appeared by my bunk. Can I have a hug? Jonathan asked. Sue was right behind him. Why am I getting a hug now? Because you are the best daddy in the whole world and the best captain, my son replied. Obviously, his son told him that you are the best daddy in the whole world and also you are the best captain. Not today, John, I am afraid. Why, you must be, said Sue in a matter of fact voice. You found the island. You should be happy because you found the island. But still, the author was not very sure about what his children are saying to him. He is still in a dilemma. What? I shouted. It's out there in front of us, they chorused. As big as a battleship. Yes, the island is in front of us. It is looking as big as a battleship. I rushed on deck and gazed with relief at the stark outline of Ile Amsterdam. It was only a bleak piece of volcanic rock with little vegetation, the most beautiful island in the world. Now, from nowhere, Ile Amsterdam can be compared to be one of the most beautiful island in the world. Now, the reason behind is that why the narrator told this, because after so long, and after so long harsh struggle, finally he could put his feet on the land. So from that perspective, he is alive, and not only that, his family members are all alive. So considering everything, he is considering the island, which is the rugged one with a little vegetation. It's a bleak place, the most beautiful island in the world. Now, I am moving on to the last segment, dear students. We anchored offshore for the night, and the next morning, all the 28 inhabitants of the island cheered as they helped us ashore. So, that particular night, they stayed within the wave walker. The next morning, they disembarked from the wave walker, and by seeing them, all the 28 inhabitants of the island came towards them and very much eager to take them along very much eager to take them with land under my feet again. My thoughts were full of Laddie and Herbie. That is the name of the two crewmen, because despite the toughest situation, they never ever had loosened their temper. They remained cheerful, optimistic. The two crewmen remained calm and composed. So let me move on. My thoughts were full of Larry and Herbie, cheerful and optimistic under the direct stress. And of Maddie, he thanked everyone. First of all, he thanked the crewmen. Then he went on thanking Mary, who stayed at the wheel for all those crucial hours. Most of all, I thought of a 7-year-old girl who did not want us to worry about a head injury. Despite getting a bit of a head injury, she was not very much interested to reveal it, and she tried to keep it by herself, because later some minor operation was done to actually remove a recurring blood clot that was between the skin and the skull. And obviously, last but not the least, how can the narrator forget about his 6-year-old son who was not afraid to die and who told that if everyone, if the entire family stays together, then ultimately death can't do them apart, or death can't take them or separate them at all. So he, in the last paragraph, he congratulated everyone, and he was very thankful to the crewmen. He was very thankful not only to the crewmen but to Mary, and also to his 7-year-old girl, Suzanne, and last but not the least, he was very eager to mention about the boy, that is his 6-year-old boy Jonathan, who was actually not afraid to die at all. So, dear students, I end my audio presentation. Kindly go through it, and if there is any doubt anywhere, let me know about it. Thank you, students. Thank you all.